Welcome to Creative Conversations, where I ask my guests, what does the word creativity mean to you? My name is Nina Lenton. I'm an untangler and coach, and I work with founders and freelancers who have lots of ideas, but aren't making progress on the ones that really matter to them. And I'm here with Charles Commins, who is a podcast producer, editor and event host. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Nina. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. So tell me, Charles, tell me a bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I am a podcast producer, which basically means that I will come up with ideas, turn them into podcasts, whether that be video or audio or both, and then do all the gubbins around that. So it could be presenting it could be just editing it, basically turning it from an idea into a final polished product. But I also do event hosting as well. So one of my lovely jobs is working at Northampton Town Football Club on a match day and hosting one of their hospitality rooms. So yeah, it's great. It's lovely. I love my job because it means that I get to do something that I have fun with every single day. It's brilliant. Honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Excellent. Oh, well, that sounds good. And we'll delve into some of those questions in a bit. So what does the word creativity mean to you?
It's a bit of a funny one, this, because I'm not one of these people that sort of goes with a word and goes, oh, what does that mean? I mean, I've always felt like I'm creative without really ever thinking about it, if that makes sense. So yeah. I'm very cliche here, so forgive me for this. But when I was a kid, I had, like a hi-fi that was like a boom box, two cassette tape decks in it with two big speakers at either end. I would literally, record the top 40, pressing pause and all of that when Mark Goodyear or whoever it was that was actually presenting the show, so that I could then record my own bit. So I was making my own radio basically in my bedroom, and that was me being creative. And I guess I've always been like that, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, but and I still do this to this day. I will talk to myself, right? Yeah. On my own. I will happily talk to myself, and it won't be like, oh, I just need to go, I must remember to go and do this, and I must do that. It will literally be things like talking through something that's happened or something that has to happen, so I can work out what needs to happen next and how I can ensure I get to the end point of whatever that is. It helps me to de-scramble things that are in my head. And even though I'm not talking to an actual person and this is the first sign of madness, it's just normal for me. I don't know whether I could never stop doing it. It's not like biting your fingernails or, smoking or anything like that. It's not habit. It is just me. And that's what I do. And I think that's part of my creativity. There will be often times when I'm speaking to a new client who wants to make a podcast, and after I've spoken to them and got the gist of why and what and how, I will then sit there with a pen and paper and I will try and work out, right, what's the best format? How would this work? And I will be all the time talking to myself while doing that. I might pretend a little bit that I'm sort of introing that podcast or doing it out loud, and that helps my process. Bits and pieces like that. So madness, yes, definitely. But creatively, that's how I work. So I accept it, that I'm a bit mad.
But it's your thinking process, because, I mean, I would say, for example, I tend to think in writing. Yes. So if I've got a problem or something I just want to, something I want to figure out or think about, I would quite often write. And by the time I've finished writing, so, I mean, like I might write a blog post or it's something that's intended to be shared. And by the time I've written it, I don't actually need to share it because it's solved a problem or it's gone off in a different direction. And that's my thinking. So that's interesting to hear that you think out loud, and that's part of your process. So you've been freelancing quite a while. How did you get started from that versus what you were doing before? So
I go back to when I was a teenager. I always wanted to be on the radio. I wanted to have the Radio 1 breakfast show. That was my goal. Yeah. I went to university to do well, it was media studies, brackets, radio production, here in Warrington. So I moved 100 odd miles away from home in Northamptonshire, came here, did that degree, well, came out with a diploma. Then during that time, I worked on student radio. I did a bit of community radio. I did some work experience at different commercial radio stations in the Northwest. Loved it. But the academic side of me had waned, and I was just like, ugh. And I didn't end up finishing my degree. The only thing I did in my final year was my dissertation, which was on whether the future of sports radio was podcasts, which I'm kind of a little bit glad to say has sort of come true. That premonition that I had, although radio obviously isn't gone away completely and hopefully never will, a lot of sports content is now through podcasting. So I did that at university. I gave myself a couple of years. I kind of said, right, you're going to try and get into radio, but the problem was two things. First of all, we're going back to sort of 2007, 2008. This is the point where nationalisation was starting to happen across all the commercial stations. So that meant there weren't as many jobs. And also, most radio stations didn't want presenters. They wanted salespeople to go and buy ads and things. And that wasn't me. So it was really hard to get into the industry that way as well. But on top of that, there was also a kind of, I wanted to stay up here in Warrington. I didn't want to move home, and that meant I needed money. So I therefore fell into work, essentially. I worked in the student union bar to start off with as an assistant manager for a year. Then I got a job in a call centre, customer service, which I did for nearly 5 years. And then I went after that back to working in pubs again and worked for a big national chain as a manager for another sort of 6 or 7 years. And at the end of that, let's say 11 years or so, I was burnt out, not really doing what I wanted to do. I had missed out on my love, and I couldn't even do my love for radio outside of my working hours because it was shift-based, so I couldn't hold down a regular, like, community radio station slot. And I just one day had enough. I quit my job, didn't really know what to do, didn't have a plan, and a couple of friends of mine basically turned around and said to me, you could do anything you wanted to now. Anybody would give their left hand to be in your position. What do you want to do? And basically it was this. It was turned into being podcasting. So I within a month set my business up and started working, created my first podcast, which is still going to this day. It's All Cobblers to Me, as a way of showing people that I could do it. And it worked. Yeah. So, here I am, 7.5 years later. Yeah.
Well, and it just shows, doesn't it, that actually sometimes you know what you want to do, but it just takes a while before you get to it, and before you're in the right place to do something about it.
And I think it's also about having that mindset of knowing that you can do something. And don't get me wrong, I was in a very privileged position when I quit my job, in that my partner has a very stable job. She's a nurse, so it pays well. It's not going away anytime soon. So I was able to quit my job. I also had quite a bit of money saved behind me. So there was definitely a privilege there that allowed me to do this. But it gave me the room to be able to turn around and go, like, you really do want to work hard at this and you could make it a success, but you now need to put the legwork in. And I think in a way I had to go through that 10, 11 years of not really enjoying what I was doing, not really being on a proper career path that contained joy, to wake myself up a bit and to make myself realise that you have to, if you want something, you need to actually work for it. You can't just meander along in life with it. If you're going to do that, you're not going to be 100% happy all the time. So I needed that in order to get to here.
And so you chose to set up a podcast about a topic that you were passionate about as well.
Yes, my football team, Northampton Town Football Club, very much a love-hate relationship, especially at the moment. But it was literally a case of what could I never run out of things to say about, and football and Northampton Town in particular, was that thing. It's a very easy thing for me to talk about because you've got games for 10 months of a year every week.
Yeah.
You've always got something new to say. You've always got a new game to look at or to look ahead to, new signings coming in, news around the football club. There's always stuff to talk about. So it made sense to me as something that, well, if I wanted to do something which was going to be a hobby, it was always meant to be a hobby. I was never thinking I'm going to make money out of it. I was wanting something that I could just do without thinking, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not making me money or because I'm bored or it's hard to come up with things to talk about. So, it was the easy option, but the best option as well because I'm, that's as old as my business is. It's 7.5 years and going really, really strong. Yeah.
And so then then you added other things into that as time went on because people could see what you could do.
Yes, exactly. So I always used that podcast as an experiment. So I was doing lots of different formats of podcasts. I did documentaries, I did head-to-heads, I did roundtables, all of these different types of content, all under that one podcast umbrella, if you like. And what that allowed me to do is that if I ever got an inquiry from somebody who was like, we're looking for somebody to make this type of show, I could go, I can do that. Here's an example. And point them towards that. And it really helped to showcase what I could do and how well I could work. So it was always about being creative on that podcast and then seeing whether that could then lead to me being able to do that for money.
Yeah. So using it to try out different things and then presumably seeing whether you liked doing that particular thing.
Yeah.
Enough to actually do it if someone asked you to.
Absolutely, yes, because it was very quickly I got my first client and they wanted a weekly marketing podcast. Yeah. And I didn't really know the first thing about marketing. I just sort of went, right, this is a way for me to learn about marketing, so I'll go ahead and do it. It was an interview-based podcast, so I would literally just, find people through LinkedIn who were talking about some type of marketing and then ask them if they would come and chat with me on a podcast for half an hour. And I learnt an awful lot through doing that. But I also learned how to be creative. Again, with that podcast, there were different types of episodes. So that different guests gave you different ideas. There might be a bit of talking about storytelling, for example, where the person that I was speaking to went and gave this really lovely sort of really, really ideological story that you could follow in your brain. And I just thought, actually, what would be really nice now is if I went and be a bit creative in the edit and I make this come to life a little bit more with some sounds and some music and things like that. And so it opened up that creativity for me within that podcast that I was being paid for as well. And then that led to more work, and that led to people working that I had originally asked to be a guest on that show, wanting me to help them with their show. So it was really good, and I enjoyed the process of doing it, even if it wasn't getting me too much money at that point.
Right. And so do you find you still get enough creativity and variety in the kind of podcasts you produce? Because obviously you've got your one that you can still be creative with, and then you mentioned that first one, but have you found that certain kinds of podcast can't be as creative or have certain ways of doing things?
Yeah, there are definitely ones that I work on where there are very strict boundaries and that therefore it is a case of this is it and you can't stray from outside of that. But I have always managed to, with any of my clients, essentially show them something and go, look, we could do this. I've done the edit as normal, for example, so that's there. But I've also gone and done this, which has added a little bit of something va-va-voom to it. What do you think? And 9 times out of 10, the clients absolutely love it. And they go, yes, let's try and go with that. And so I will do that. And I'm never saying we could do this if you paid me more. Yeah. I am just saying that we could do this to make it stand out a bit more. here's an idea I had based off the last episode. Here it is so you can actually hear or see it. What do you think? And I put it back to them and say, look, we can carry on with the way it's been, or we can maybe trial something a little bit new for you. Whenever I get a new client, I'm always trying to be as creative as possible with that. But again, within a boundary of, you know, the client is looking for it to do something for them, to give them an ROI at the end of it. So it's still got to make sure that it's going to come out with that.
I suppose also, being self-employed, creativity comes a lot into the way you market yourself and what you do. Because I mean, I know I certainly see lots of different kinds of video from you, for example.
Yeah, I started doing some social media videos probably about 18 months ago now. I started doing it, managed to keep it going for 3 weeks until I burnt out and couldn't do anymore. I'd gone ridiculously. I'd said to myself, I'm going to do 3 videos a week. And it just wasn't, you couldn't sustain that at all.
Yeah.
So I gave it a rest, came back beginning of this year, 2026, and started doing them weekly. I think I managed 3 months, and then I've just kind of, I don't want to say I've run out of ideas or run out of things to do. It's more that I've run out of time. They actually, in the end, they did their job, which was attracted people that then became clients. So I've kind of had to sort of go, right, I need to do this work for money first, and maybe I'll go back to doing it. But I keep, like, there will be times when I'm just having a walk and I will go, oh, here's an idea for a video, and I'll quickly note it down. So I've still got like a note on my phone that is just full of different ideas, so that when I do have the time, when I can come back to it, I will have a list of things that I can therefore go and record and think about creating a script for. But yeah, it's nice being able to market yourself in a nice creative way. And I'm one of these people that I will see somebody else doing something and I'll go, oh, how could I do that? So there's always me thinking, how do I do X, Y, and Z? And it could be that I'm taking ideas from different people, tweaking it and making it my own. Yeah. But I do always feel like, oh, I'm still just copying somebody else.
But it's part of, I mean, creativity is partly that as well, though, isn't it? It's looking at, you know, and I think because we all have different brains as well, which is something that I'm quite fascinated by, that some people can just come up with ideas, and some people actually are better at reacting to things that already exist.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, you know, art and writing and all sorts of things where there are influences there, aren't there? Because you're absorbing all of this information. Even social media posts, you know, I find that someone can say something and actually I may not have come up with an idea to talk about that topic, but someone's asked that question and I think, oh, I know something about that, so I can write because it's just inspired me.
Yes.
And creativity is often piecing together all those little things, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely, I would definitely say that I get inspired a lot by different things that are out there. And there's always things in podcasting, for example, like you're going to use, you know, some video clips to promote this episode for your podcast.
Yes, I do,
right?
a clip for each one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing this yesterday for a client. They had not taken a clip out of the actual episode. They had recorded a video after they'd recorded saying, this is what the episode is about, who my guest is, yada, yada, yada. And I was then tasked with putting that into a brand new video clip for them to then post on social media.
Yeah.
I played around with it about 4 or 5 different ways, trying to look at how others are currently making those clips at the moment. And I was doing things like I was taking the picture or the image, the video of that person, putting it into a circle frame and having them talk in that frame inside a bigger, you know, frame for the post and things like that. And I just couldn't do it in a way that I was happy with. So I ended up reverting back to just essentially having that person as filling the screen, captions underneath so you can read what they're saying, and then at the end, just basically fading it into an end screen with the podcast logo and listen now on Apple, Spotify and YouTube or whatever. Yeah. And just very simple, you know, weirdly, I feel like I wasted an hour trying to be creative only to go back to something that I've tried and tested and no fits. And the one thing that I think I learnt through that bit of creative working out was that actually what I needed to do was to plan whether this was going to work before I got my client to record the video,
right,
so that I could then sort of go, right, what I need you to do is do this.
But but the beauty of having experimented with it is that now you've got in your head, oh, well, actually, that would work quite nicely if I had these components.
Yeah.
And then if you worked with somebody who wanted that or who was in a position to give you those kind of clips, you can brief them, can't you?
That is exactly it. So there is a little bit of, okay, it hasn't worked on this occasion, but I've now got that in my locker and I can bring it out again at another point. So
coming back to, you mentioned you were talking about collecting all of your ideas on your phone as you're walking and just sort of keeping hold of them so you don't lose them. Would you have said you're quite disciplined with doing that and capturing them and then seeing them through?
No, absolutely not. No, I am very much one of those people that will have an idea and therefore know that if I don't write it down, it will be lost forever and I'll never remember it. But that doesn't mean that I have got, like, I will just open up a new note on my notes app and then just put it down there. Whether I go back to it and ever look at it again is another thing. I wish that I maybe was a little bit more disciplined and had a process maybe where I got that idea and then went and loaded it into, I don't know, a Trello board or something that everything would therefore be to go back and look, and then would sort of set reminders to say, right, go and look at your ideas and what you've had, and is anything there that you can now bring forward and do and utilise. I don't tend to do that. I just have this inherent fear that when I have an idea, I will forget it. So you better off write it down. And then I kind of forget that I ever had the idea and wrote it down in the first place. So it doesn't always work.
I'm laughing because I do that. So, I mean, I started a Trello board last summer because obviously summer holidays, that's a time when I don't really have much time to do anything with ideas. So I started the Trello board. Every time I had an idea, I opened my phone, popped it in the Trello board. Have I looked at that Trello board? I mean, at the time of recording this, we are in May 2026. That was July and August 2025. I couldn't tell you what's on that thing I set up in Trello. So,
no. I would do exactly the same kind of thing, I think.
So, I mean, obviously, as people that are self-employed, obviously we're not in offices working with other people all the time. So you kind of have to build that support in, whether that's, I mean, I for example, I recognised recently that I need accountability to do stuff. There is that if there are things that I'm not getting done, like saying that I want to do some weights, for example, just small bits of exercise. That was something that I was just not doing, even though, I mean, that would have been one of those things that was on my to-do list every week. And then I thought, well, I know someone who's a health coach. Why don't I just get her to do an accountability thing? And similarly, and so now once a week I do that, and it's a small thing, but I'm doing it because I've got somebody who I know I'm going to see, and she's going to look at me, and if I haven't done it, I'll know I've not done it. But similarly, I've started putting that in place with other things I do. So making sure that if there are things I really want to do, I have somebody that probably I'm paying, but it's not necessarily, but sometimes it is people who you're paying to remind you that you need to do something. Do you find that there's support like that you need to get things done, or to get the really important stuff done?
Yeah, I think so. So I have a brilliant co-mentor, Amy Gumbrell, who's a website designer.
Yeah.
So completely different to what I do. But once a month, we get on a video call and we go through essentially what's happened in our month previous. We talk about the good things, the things that didn't quite go so well, and we also go through our goals that we had set ourselves the previous month. So those could be things like, finish with this client, get that project done, or it could be something else that is like, I don't know, I'm currently going through a bit of a website redesign that Amy is helping me with, but I'm doing the work, if that makes sense. So I have basically got maybe a list of 4 or 5 little things that I want to make changes with on the website, and I'll put that down as separate things that I want to achieve, and Amy will then come back to me and say, did you do them? And I'll go, no, and then I'll feel guilty, and then I'll make room to get them done. So there is that little bit of accountability for both of us. It's gone really, really well. I really enjoy it. I mean, on the whole, what we tend to do is we tend to help each other with issues that we're having. They might be client issues, but they also might be, I don't know, for me it might be, I can't get this bit of my website to work. What's going wrong? Or it might be anything else. It might be, you know, my relationship with this person just isn't quite where I want it to be. Can you be the sensible person and tell me I'm overthinking it, please? And inevitably I am overthinking it. So it works really, really nicely having that. There is accountability because we set those goals and then we come back and we review them the next month. But there isn't like if we don't do them, a telling off at the end of it. It's more of well, let's talk through why. What was the reason why you couldn't get it done? And when it's client stuff, it's invariably not our fault. And so you're sort of turning around and going, well, wasn't anything that I could do about it, but here's what I'm thinking of doing as a follow-up to try and make sure that it doesn't get extended any further. Yeah. Things like that. So there's a lot of really good elements to that relationship that me and Amy have. Yeah. There is also a lot of stuff that we will talk about that will spark ideas between us. Yeah, and that's really good and a nice way. And it's also... It's nice that, as I said before, like I will happily talk to myself and nobody else in the room. But when I've got somebody there that is willing to listen to me and to hear what I want to get off my chest, that's also really, really good. So that's really nice. Yeah. And I try and make sure that I give Amy the space to be able to do the same back to me. We work well together in that respect, and the accountability that we have is nice. Sometimes we'll send each other WhatsApp messages going, you said you're going to do this. Have you done it? And that will be either a, yes, it's done, or it will be, no, but thanks for the reminder. I'm going to do it right now. And so that does work.
Because, I mean, how did that come around in terms of the co-mentoring? Because I know it's something that I think it was Frankie and Steve on the Doing It for the Kids podcast talked about co-mentoring, which is quite an interesting idea as people who are self-employed to think about. But how did that come around?
Yeah, so I think I started doing it not long after Frankie and Steve had started doing it. And it was because, same thing for Frankie and Steve, actually, which is that I listened to a podcast which is called Friends with Business Benefits, which is Frankie Shanahan and Charlie Swift. Great podcast for freelancers. Right. And their podcast is actually their co-mentoring session. Oh, okay. So they are literally having their co-mentoring session and doing the podcast at the same time. So it gave me the idea of wanting to do it. And I think then somebody else in either being freelance or the Doing It for the Kids community was talking about how you sort of go ahead and get a co-mentor. Yeah. And the way that it came about with me and Amy was that Amy wanted to make a podcast. I wanted to go from having a Squarespace website to having what I was thinking was a proper website. Yeah. And we agreed that what we would do is we would skill share. So rather than any money being transferred between us, I'd help with the podcast, and in return, Amy would help me with my website. And when we were doing that, we were having like these meetings quite often and talking about those aspects, but a little bit more than that as well. It would be our businesses.
Yeah, because it naturally comes up in conversation, doesn't it?
Exactly. So it just became this thing where actually at the end, or at the point where we were at the end of making the website and the podcast series, I just sort of turned around and went, do you want to carry on doing this, but not about podcast or website, but as about just our businesses? You know, I think it'd be really nice. We get on well together. It's a good fit. What do you think? And yeah, we've been doing it for ridiculous amount of time now. It's like 3 or 4 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me and having this conversation about creativity and all the different aspects of it. I always find it scary interviewing podcast producers. But you've been good, so it's not been too scary. So.
Good. It's been lovely. Thank you so much for asking me to come on, Nina. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck with the edit.
Thank you. So where can people find you if they want to look up more about you?
Probably your best bet is to go and find me on LinkedIn. So just Charles Commins, Commins. Find me there. Or you can look at my website, which is vibrantsoundmedia.com.
Excellent. Thank you for joining me, Charles.
Thank you, Nina. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every second of it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Creative Conversations. I'm Nina Lenton. I'm an untangler and coach, and you can find out more about my work and this podcast at ninalenton.co.uk.